are hot. Go for mayor.
Good evening. Sorry for the late start. We had a tour over at Wolf Industries, so our clerk was madly getting the meeting ready. I have 7:01. I'm going to call this November 3rd regular meeting of Battle Ground City Council to order. If you're able, please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic. Roll call, please.
Mayor McCoy,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Bowman,
Here.
Councilmember Kuipers,
Here.
Councilmember Ferrer,
Present.
Councilmember DeRozier,
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
And Councilmember Overholzer is absent this evening.
Mayor, I move to excuse Eric Overholzer.
Motion is second excuse. Councilmember Overholzer, he did let me know he was going to be traveling and would not be able to meet the meeting. All in favor of excusing him, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next up is agenda approval.
I would like to amend the agenda. I would like to move that the 2026 legislative agenda from the summary reports and presentation be moved to the business item, since we will be making a motion on that item. Do we have somebody presenting tonight?
We
That
do.
maybe-
That's
could we-
why.
Okay, then can we just do the business section under business then?
There's a motion on the floor to move the legislative presentation to the business section. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. That passes. We'll move that to the business section. Brings us to council member report, or no, I need a motion on the approval of the agenda then, please, as amended.
Yeah, I'll motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second. Thank you. Second by Kuipers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now we can get to council member reports. Any committee that the council member serves on, this would be the time to report out. Do we have any such reports tonight?
Yep.
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. That'll bring us to the mayor's report, and we have a new employee introduction by Mr. Hersick.
Good evening, council. Today I'm going to introduce you to Aiden Oldham. He's our new maintenance worker in the streets division. He previously worked with the city of Vancouver as in the grounds maintenance department. He also worked as a seasonal maintenance worker here for us this summer in stormwater. He's a graduate of Battleground High School. In his spare time, he likes to snowboard, mountain bike, rock climb, dirt bike, and scuba dive. I'll let him say a couple words.
I'm just thankful for this opportunity and I'm excited to learn more work.
All right, thank you. Come up, meet the council. Glad to have you on board. Looking forward to it. Chief, tell me about this new officer.
Officer Brody Free, would you come up, please? So Brody was hired about 2 weeks ago. Prior to being hired by the Battleground Police Department, he worked for the Lebanon Police Department just outside of Nashville for 7 years. He grew up here in East Vancouver and Battleground. He's a graduate from Evergreen High School in 2013, which every time I say these years, it just makes me that much older. Brody's not married yet. He's got no children other than his dog Annie. However, he keeps busy helping his girlfriend raise his 8-year-old son, Reese. He brings 7 years of law enforcement experience. It's really exciting for us. He's was already a hostage crisis negotiator. He's trained in crime scenes, communication, de-escalation, and has already been to leadership classes. When he's off duty, he plays basketball. As you can see, I'm kind of fit for that. I can bring out the water to the guys, I guess. Walking the dogs and playing video games. His parents, Brian and Devery Free, are here tonight to congratulate him, along with his girlfriend Shannon, and their family and friends. But more important than that, we're just very, very fortunate when we get somebody who already comes to us with this type of caliber, that has this type of training, that understands the city, understands our values. It was a no-brainer when he came to attest. It was how fast can we extend that option out to him? And as you can imagine, 7 years in policing, sometimes people come with baggage. And I was, you're going through all the pre-employment and to hear the rave reviews. So we're expecting such great things from Officer Free. So very, very grateful to have you and to have everybody here. So if you would, please, sir.
Thank you guys. Have to be at home, bring my training experience. Yeah, with police and police that I grew up with, they're happy to be here. Definitely.
All right, you want to give the oath? Yeah.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Brody Free,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey,
obey,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
and laws
and laws
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and of the state of Washington.
and of the state of Washington.
I will abide by
I will abide by
the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics
the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics
and will diligently
and will diligently
and impartially
and impartially
perform all duties
perform all duties
of police officer
of police officer
for the city of Battleground,
for the city of Battleground,
county of Clark,
county of Clark,
state of Washington,
state of Washington,
as such duties
as such duties
are prescribed by law.
are prescribed by law. Sorry. Yoshi.
He's getting his steps in.
Yeah, I just didn't process what you're saying. And now we have our graduation ceremony, correct?
We do, yes, sir.
All
Um,
right.
On behalf of Dean Swanson and their staff, it is my pleasure to present to you, the City Council, the graduates of the 2025 class of Battleground University. For the sake of those in the audience who may not know, Battleground University, or BGU as we call it, is an education and public outreach program that provides our students a glimpse of the inner workings of City Hall. We share a bit on how we're organized, how we function, how we operate, and what we do in service to our residents, our businesses, and our visitors. We hope that BG removes some of the mystery that public often associates with City Hall, addressing misperceptions that can arise over how the city functions, as well as explain how city government fits in the grand scheme of things under the federalist form of governance that's been practiced in this country for 200 and almost 50 years. BGU takes place over a 10-week period, and we structure the program so that it's more of a discussion than a formal classroom experience. This means that there are no quizzes, there are no tests, which I think our students were very pleased by. We ask only that students be active and be engaged during the classes, and if they attend at least 4 out of the 5 sessions, they graduate. I'm happy to announce that we had 23 students attend the minimum 4 classes to graduate, and 13 actually attended all 5 classes. I'd also like to take a moment to offer my sincere thanks to a few key staff who contributed to the success of the program. First, each class was led by a department director who's played the role of professor for the evening. So I'd like to thank Professors Flynn, Leto, Lowry, and Hersig for taking the time to lead a session in their particular area of expertise. I'd also like to thank Ms. Smith for helping to promote the program, solicit and process student applications, and then serve as the primary point of contact between students and the city, as well as Ms. Jensen, who was instrumental in all the behind-the-scenes work, ensuring that we had whatever we needed for each class session, and that things were always ready to go. Also, City Manager Swanson and I would like to thank the City Council for allowing us to host BGU. As council members know, but for the sake of our audience, one of your goals has been to grow our already strong public outreach and engagement program. This is the 3rd year of BGU, and we feel the program has and will continue to help us realize that objective. And lastly, to our students in the audience this evening, I cannot say thank you enough. Thank you for taking the time out of your life to learn a bit more about how the city we all call home operates. Thank you for showing up and being engaged. And I hope that you felt it was time well spent and that you'd be willing to share what you've learned with others in the community. And so what we're going to do now is I'll ask Ms. Smith to come forward. She'll be at the podium. Mr. Mayor, if you could join her at the podium. And then council members, if you could be in the front of the dais here, and we'll take some photos, and Ms. Smith will say a few words, and then she'll invite each graduate to come forward and accept their diploma. Thank you.
All right, so we'll have them come around. you want to be there, I'll just pass them to you. That'd be awesome. All right, so thank you, Rob, for that. I just wanted to add, over the course of the BGU sessions, the students received little trinkets representing the departments that they learned about each night. Each item included a link to our webpage that would connect them to additional information and resources that we offer online to our public. It made it relevant to the subject they learned that evening. Those items were presented along with a sign to encourage students to take the items home called Building Your Toolkit. The items were small but useful, and they represented the real toolkit that they were building, which was attending BGU. The knowledge of with this knowledge about their city and connecting with the people that they serve. Tonight, as we graduate the Battleground University class of 2025, we would like to present them with their last piece of their toolkit. It is a golden keychain inscribed with "Community is key," along with a mini key to the city. This token is meant to represent the gratitude we have for them sharing their time with us and their desire to learn more about their city while building community through connection. Tonight, we celebrate each of you for making that commitment, and we thank you all for making Battleground University a success. So with that, we will, one by one. First up, we have Kevin Alvarez. And then if you want to line up in front of the dais as well, we'll take Next, we have James Bennett. We'll do a group picture at the end.
Yeah.
Chris Brown. Made myself. Larry Bruss. Jessica Cole. Lily Cooper. Edgar Garcia. We do. Yeah. Joseph Hardy Spence. Glenda Hawkins. Navarre Hurd. Debbie Kelly.
Thanks, 13.
Debbie Lebanon. Double W's.
Next time.
Nancy Little. McKay Olson and Rebecca Olson. If you guys want to come up together, you're welcome. You only got one hand to shake though.
Yeah.
Jennifer Rosenberger. Isaiah Rogers. The biggest group we've ever had.
You guys are up. Yeah, that's particularly fun.
Lisa Sands.
You guys might have to scrunch it.
Oh yeah, we'll have to double decker. Jill Stansberry. Katrina Wogan. And that is all I had RSVP'd for tonight, but we also wanted to thank Sheila Clark, Joseph Say, Gomkowitz.
Joseph G.
Joseph G, Christina McCord, and then Rob and Tony Woodward. So thank you all. We want to, yeah, we're gonna have to get together.
As you guys kind of filter out, I just want to thank you all for that time commitment. It means a lot to us on council to see citizens take time out of their day to maybe understand a little bit, maybe understand what we do and what we don't do. So it means a lot to us to see that commitment. So thank you for taking time out of your nights to do that. It's really appreciated. Brings us to, at this point, we have the state legislative agenda, and I'll defer to the motion maker. Did you want to talk about it now and then have the motion later, or talk about it now? Okay. So Josh, are you able, or are you there, or did you?
I am still here. Good afternoon or good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Nice to see everyone. So I am going to share my screen. I think that's what we decided I'm doing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so let me work on this here. How does that look?
We're good.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Well, thanks again. It's good to be here tonight. Tonight, what I am planning to go over is just a little bit of an overview of last legislative session, both in general terms, but also how the city did with your priorities. And want to jump right into talking about the upcoming 2026 session. Again, in general terms on what to expect, what we think from, a couple months out. Want to talk a little bit about what the Association of Washington Cities is planning on trying to push forward. What we have talked about with the legislative committee in terms of the draft legislative agenda, and then opportunity to answer any questions. And I will say that though I can't really see with my screen sharing like this, if there are questions in the middle of the presentation, I'm happy to take them. I just need an audible, throw me an audible, Mayor, and I'm happy to take a pause. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going here. So last session was the 2-year long session. The major priority for the legislature was to adopt their operating, transportation, and capital budget for the 2-year biennium. They did all of those. They also considered over 1,900 bills. They passed 422. Only one was vetoed by Governor Ferguson. That's about a 22% passage rate, which is almost exactly the same passage rate as the last 2-year long sessions. So pretty average number of bills. The operating budget, we are continuing to see our state operating budget grow. We're now at about almost $78 billion in the operating budget. That was an 8.2% increase in new revenue, $4.4 billion in new revenue from the sales tax package that the legislature passed for the operating budget. They also made a significant number of cuts and reductions. So it was a pretty significant shifting around of resources. One of the themes you'll hear me talk about is we're still very much, after 12 years with Governor Inslee, we're still very much learning about Governor Ferguson and what his not only his priorities, but also just his mode of operating. One thing that we were waiting until late May to really know whether or not he was going to sign the revenue package that the legislature had passed and the budget that was based upon it. He did sign all three budgets, but he did go through the operating budget at a level of detail and made a number of vetoes at a level of detail we really haven't seen before, including one that was important to us for $100,000, but actually I noticed one in there that was for $50,000. He came up with $25 million worth of savings through these sort of what were largely kind of nickel and dime type of provisos in the budget. So very interesting, certainly not what we're used to seeing, but maybe understandable in the situation where they were facing such budget challenges. Transportation budget, they also passed a revenue package, $3.2 billion. That's over a 6-year period. The operating budget number I gave you was over 4 years. We're now up to $15.5 billion in the transportation budget. That revenue package, if you may have seen in the news, was necessary really to keep the existing projects that the legislature had planned for in the last 2 revenue packages on track. There are a couple of new capital projects in the transportation budget, but really not many at all. And that's really a result of inflation and rising costs and over expenditures. Some of the major projects along I-5 have just been a lot more expensive than was originally anticipated, so they needed additional revenue. We're also seeing gas tax collections, which is the foundation of the transportation budget, are declining. This has been the case for several years now. This package should pretty much keep them above water for a couple of years, but eventually they're going to have to deal with the fact that gas tax is not the reliable, steady revenue source that it used to be, or at least as big of a revenue source as it used to be. The capital budget, very stable and steady, predominantly funded with bonds, $7.6 billion in expenditures. It's the smallest budget. The average, I put here, the average local community project was $578,000. We had a couple of different local community projects, did very, very well this last legislative session. The local community project program is what we typically are competing in when we work with our delegation to ask for capital budget funding money. And that averages across the state. So for our request this last session, we were requesting an additional $11 million for the Eden Boulevard reconstruction. We did not get that money in the final transportation budget. As I mentioned, there were not new capital projects for the most part. We did show up, the Senate in their proposal that did not end up getting adopted. They took a very different approach to the transportation budget by essentially identifying a kind of large pot of money that would be available for the legislature to pick projects out of in the coming years. And Eaton was identified in that list of eligible projects. So that was about as close as we got this year, which is not surprising given where they sort of ended up on that. We were successful in a $1.5 million request for planning and beginning development for the Remy Park. As I just mentioned before, the average project was $578,000. So we are, triple the average amount there, which was really great to see. Our legislative delegation and really working across the 18th, but also the 17th and the 49th and the 20th gets involved as well. And we have really fantastic bipartisan leadership there. We also were successful in getting another $500,000 for the design of the next components of the downtown revitalization project. And just a reminder, probably mostly for the public, that in 2023, we got a $350,000 operating budget proviso to do community outreach and start to look at options for revitalization. So legislature very vested in the downtown revitalization project, and over $2 million there in capital budget requests that we were successful in funding. the request for the city document management system, we were in the final operating budget, and this was one of the items that Governor Ferguson vetoed. And I don't think it was any sort of reflection on the legitimacy of the project. I don't think it was a substantive statement. It was really, like I sort of mentioned before, he was just looking for places to make up some savings. And it also was not a political statement. There was a project down in the 49th district that we had Democratic members that were very strongly pushing for that he also vetoed. And so I don't think it was favoritism either. I just think it was the criteria of trying to save money. So looking ahead, 2026 will be the short session. It's only 60 days. Before we get there, I know that many of you are paying close attention to the local elections that will be election day tomorrow, but we also have 9 elections statewide that are legislative. A lot of this is because Governor Ferguson picked some senior legislators to serve in his cabinet. That usually meant that House members were bumped up to the Senate. And then that creates a House vacancy. So sort of a domino effect in several different places. I don't think there is no way that any of these elections are going to impact the majorities in the legislature this next year. But it could potentially impact the tenor. And I think we're feeling less and less like there's going to be an electoral reaction to the tax package that was adopted by the legislature last session. There are a couple of swing seats that we're watching really closely up north in King County is one, and in Pierce-Kitsap County is the other. I think we're looking to sort of see what the voters are thinking out there in these swing districts. Just a reminder that bills introduced in 2025 but that didn't pass in 2026 will be eligible for action. Or sorry, that were introduced in 2025 but did not pass in 2025 will be eligible for action this coming session. So, some of those terrific and not so terrific proposals that we saw last year that didn't quite make it through with only that 22% passage rate, we could be seeing again. There are still problems in the operating budget. This is, I would say, sort of threefold factor. One is that, like you are seeing, and everybody out there in the market is feeling, inflation is a real thing. Costs are going up on everything. The state, in addition, is dealing with increased caseload forecasts. So that's basically pupils in schools that they have to pay for, and social services programs that are mandated that they have to pay for. Those costs are increasing. And then, the general questions about the economy are still hanging around, and that does affect a state that's so heavily based on sales tax. We are seeing a little bit of lagging just from the overall national and global impact. So forecasts are coming in slower than were anticipated. Our budgets are always based on projections essentially that are estimating how much money they think they will have to spend over that. It's actually a forecast period is 4 years. So the collections in September came in $900 million less than they anticipated in June. That wasn't quite as much as they had anticipated in March, but it's still lower. We have one more revenue forecast on November 18th, so just in a couple of weeks, that will really be the foundation for what Governor Ferguson uses to put his proposed supplemental budget together. We expect that in early to mid-December, and it'll be very interesting. As I mentioned before, we're still getting a feel for this governor and his priorities. We'll get a real good glimpse into that when we see the supplemental budget. But we do think, and I'll talk about this in a few moments about priorities for the session, we think they're going to be making some reductions. The impacts of the federal budget are also likely to be driving concern as well. So it's not going to be in the operating budget, it's not going to be a growth year. The Association of Washington Cities has established already their priorities. They're going to be focusing on basically 4 major topics, and then they have a whole bucket of other important issues. And their whole agenda is I think it might even be 5 pages long when you get to all those other important issues. But the main ones are wanting to make sure the legislature is continuing to pay attention to the new caseload forecasts that have been adopted by the Supreme Court for mandating what cities and counties have to provide for indigent defense, defending criminal defendants that can't afford an attorney, both in terms of increasing state funding, helping cities with the cost of providing those attorneys. Washington ranks very, very low. I think it's 50th in the nation for number of amount of money that the state provides to local governments. And then also just enhancing the workforce. As odd as it sounds, it's hard to find attorneys that are willing to do this work. So we need more attorneys out there. Transportation will continue to be a priority for the association, wanting to make sure there's resources for local preservation, maintenance, and also operational needs. Given a time of potential, I'm not going to say recessionary, but decreased revenues, wanting to make sure the state doesn't look to those revenues that are shared at the local level or with the local governments, making those reductions like they did during the Great Recession. And then housing supply continues to be a priority for everybody. The cities are wanting to make emphasis on basically tools and opportunities to increase new investment in infrastructure and local housing, but also just frankly needing time at the local level to implement all of the recent legislation and policies that have been passed by the legislature. I won't get into the other important issues, but we can talk about more of that if you'd like. So in terms of setting your legislative agenda, the City Legislative Committee and staff and I have been meeting over the interim to develop the first draft of what you're seeing tonight. My recommendation continues to be that you prioritize items that only the City of Battle Ground is going to champion. Making sure that there are other items that we know are important, but what are the pieces that if nobody else brings forward and asks for, will get left behind. There will be opportunities in the capital budget, more so probably than you typically would think in a supplemental budget year, but there are not going to be opportunities in the operating or transportation budget. We also need to be prepared to defend against the worst cuts, sort of mentioned before, shared revenues. And then also, as I mentioned before, the idea that there will be bills returning from last year that will be considered again. So here are the items that the committee has put together, and very consistent with the recommendations that I had made. Wanting to keep Eaton Boulevard on the agenda for the purpose of making sure the legislature is aware that there are still local transportation needs out there. I really want to be prepared in the case that they decide to raise some new transportation revenue and do some new local projects, that we have something that is available and that we can say this is important to the City of Battle Ground. We are recommending going back for another $1 million capital budget request for actual construction or maybe property acquisition on the downtown revitalization project. That's a consistent theme. We know we've got support in the delegation for this. And then also similarly with Remy Park, adding some inclusive play equipment that differently abled kids can play on and enjoy as well, and asking for $1.5 million in the capital budget. That might be a little bit high, but we can justify that, and it gives us a place to at least start discussions. I also want to ask for $1 million for the 92nd Avenue sewer pump station and force main. That's the next step, and I know that you had were in line to be receiving some federal money that fell through. So wanting to use that as the rationale to come forward and ask for additional funding for that. And that's a lot of capital budget requests, and I would not expect that we would be successful with 3 capital budget requests, but I do like the idea of having a few different ideas on the menu, so to speak, that are all legitimate and could go forward, that we can have conversations with our delegation about. We also do want to continue or emphasize the need for help with indigent defense. That's a huge cost. It's only going to be ballooning. Legislature needs to be continuing to hear about that. And then the other big one that we haven't talked about before is actually putting forward, requesting a piece of legislation. It would be a bill that would go into statute and remove the authority for Clark County to have a railroad industrial overlay for the Chalachi Prairie Railroad. There's only 2 counties in the state that are authorized. Clark is one. Obviously, this has been a contentious issue. And given the city's desire to really see that railroad not put back into railroad use, this seems like a logical first step. And we do have some support from the delegation on that, so that's on the proposal. And then there's 3 items there. They're very typical. It's actually think it's exactly what we had last year on our agenda. We typically say that we support state and regional priorities with AWC, the Regional Law Enforcement Training Academy, which is an ongoing regional priority, and then also with the Clark County Transportation Alliance. And I know you have a presentation from the Alliance. At some point this evening, they can talk more about what's on that agenda, but that does include the Eaton Boulevard project. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm happy to answer questions. Actually, before I stop sharing, does anybody want to go back to any slides? Okay.
Council's questions? So this would be the time to talk about if there's something on there you don't like, if there's something you want to add, there's something you want to modify. What we just want.
I guess I would be curious to know how staff, because are those the same numbers that we had been given in our packet on the 2026 agenda, the 1.5 million and $1 million? My mind is just, I guess, like trying to remember the numbers that were actually on that original agenda that was given in our packet on Wednesday. And are those the same numbers that were? I don't print off a copy of my packet, and I don't have my new iPad. Sorry. It is all the same, 1 million for each one of those. Okay.
We good?
Good. Yep.
Okay, Josh, I think you get off easy. No questions.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for the time, everybody. Look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thank you. Okay, and we'll vote on that after the presentation from Clark County Transportation Alliance then. That moves us to automatic traffic safety cameras. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor of Council. The council's consideration of using automated traffic camera systems, or ATS cams, is not new. Council asked staff to gather information on their use, and we presented information on multiple occasions between August of 23 and February of 24. Ultimately, council chose not to provide specific policy direction regarding possible implementation. Fast forward to September of this year, and BGPD shared data with the council on automobile collisions, traffic stops, and traffic citations at select locations in Battleground that occurred between September 1st of 24 and August 31st of 25. At the conclusion of that report, council asked staff to revisit the topic of ATS cams and report back at a future meeting, and here we are this evening. I would like to note that MRSC, which is the Municipal Research and Service Center, it's a leading nonprofit organization here in Washington that's dedicated to serving local governments across the state with legal and policy guidance on topics germane to your jurisdiction. They have an abundance of information on ATS cams. And in fact, there's a couple of links that are embedded in the staff report that I put in there to allow you to review that information at your leisure. I'd also like to mention that ATS cams are not new here in Washington. They've been in existence since 2005. I will say that the law was recently amended last year in 24 and provides rules and regulations to cities and counties who use them to detect certain traffic violations. Simply put, they're used by many cities, many counties up and down the state to one degree or another. What are they? Well, in practice, ATM cams go by many names. Some people call them stoplight cameras. Some people call them red light cameras, speed cameras, school zone cameras. In RCW, the Revised Code of Washington, they're defined as a device that uses a vehicle sensor installed to work in conjunction with an intersection traffic control system, a railroad grade crossing, or a speed measuring device. On the screen there, you see there's a picture of a cam up in the sound area. They look a little bit different depending on who makes them and what their use is. They're also an increasingly common tool used by, before I get to that point, it's important to note that ATS cams, here we go, are used for a different purpose than other similar traffic cam systems that are used by law enforcement, things like body worn cameras or dash cameras or license plate readers. Those are more typically associated with efforts by law enforcement to detect criminal violations or to document police activities. Something totally different. They're subject to different legal requirements and restrictions, and they're not part of this conversation this evening. And I would also mention that Chief Flynn, if I get out of line or I say anything, please correct me. In discussion of who uses them, as I mentioned, they're an increasingly common tool used by cities and counties to detect vehicles running red lights or speeding in the community. They can be used to detect other types of violations, such as failing to stop at railroad crossings. Why do why do jurisdictions use them? Well, they're motivated by a desire to improve public safety. They're looking for greater safety of pedestrians, prevent speeding, traffic collisions. They can also serve as a force multiplier and address staffing restrictions for law enforcement agencies across the state. One of the questions council asked us to review is, what is the process used to install and use an ATS cam system? Well, step one is to select a permissible camera location. You can include things like intersections, rail crossings, or a school zone. One of the questions that council asked last time was, we've got a busy intersection here at 502, 503. It's a state highway. Can you place cameras in the intersection? The answer to that question is yes, you can, but you do have to notify the Department of Transportation that you're going to do it. So even though it's a state highway, doesn't matter. We can place them there. The second step is the law requires that each camera's impact be measured on the chosen location. So you do some analysis. That analysis must examine how the camera could impact the location's livability, accessibility, economics, education, and environmental health, as well as show that the chosen location has a demonstrated need for the traffic cams. That means the analysis needs to show that the chosen location is, one, traveled by what they call vulnerable road users as defined by law. Those are people who ride bicycles, those are pedestrians, people who ride motorcycles, people who use other forms of personal mobility devices, scooters, things like that. Or there is evidence of vehicle speeding or collisions at a given location, or other means to reduce traffic safety risks are infeasible or ineffective. Then the law requires the agency to adopt an ordinance that at a minimum adopts the state law cam restrictions and signage requirements. Then the agency is required to post its cam restrictions and policies, including putting it on their website. It's essentially a statement of how the jurisdiction's ATS program works. And MRSC, again, has several great examples of other cities that have done this. And if you've had a chance to look at those or you've not yet looked at those, I would recommend you do so. And then lastly, at least 30 days prior to the use of cams, a jurisdiction has to physically place signs at the location stating the cams will be used to enforce traffic violations. Now, in congruence with this, the city would also need to identify and select a vendor to either sell or lease cams to us, to the local jurisdiction. Now, some vendors, their business model is sell the equipment. Other vendors, their business model is lease the equipment. Staff, when we first looked at this back in the end of 23 and 24, we actually had some initial conversations with some of those vendors. And we would need to revisit those when discussing potential terms after we get some specific direction from the city council. In terms of processing infractions, RCW treats them like parking tickets, okay? By law, CAMs can only record images of a vehicle and its license plate and only while the violation is occurring. So you can't use it to record images of the faces of the people who are driving the vehicle or passengers in the vehicle. And interestingly enough, the registered owner is presumed responsible for the violation, and ATS CAM infractions do not become part of the vehicle owner's driving record. Further, state law caps ATS CAM infraction fines at $290 for school speed zone speeding violations and $145 for all other violations, for example, red light violations. These amounts are not set by the local jurisdiction, they're set by law. It's reviewed by for inflationary adjustments once every 5 years, beginning in 2029. Also, fines for first violations and subsequent violations that occur within 21 days after the first violation, by law, must be reduced by 50% for offenders who are also recipients of certain public assistance when they make that request. So think of participants who have received WIC support, someone who resides in a nursing home, they may be eligible to have that reduction. And all those different qualifications are defined in RCW as it deals with public assistance. Furthermore, state law places restrictions on how cities and counties may use revenue. For example, compensation to the camera vendor must reflect the actual value of the equipment or the services provided, not measured as a portion or a percentage of the fines that are generated by the infraction. Also, for programs instituted after January 1 of 2024, which if Battleground did this, we would fall into this category, revenue may only be used to cover program costs and to pay for specified traffic safety activities such as road design projects that reduce speed or projects to enhance transportation user safety. Jurisdictions with populations in excess of 10,000 must also direct a portion of their revenue towards projects that provide direct and meaningful traffic safety benefits to areas with household income in the lowest quartile and areas with injury crash rates above the jurisdiction's average. And then also, starting 4 years after the camera's placement, the city would be required to deposit 25% of the camera's revenue, less allowed camera and infraction processing costs, into an account called the Cooper Jones Active Transportation Safety Account. For background, Cooper Jones was a juvenile cyclist who, I think in the late 90s, he was struck and killed while participating in a road race, a cycle road race in Eastern Washington. This is a state program. It supports projects across the state intended to improve the safety of peds, bicyclists, and those using other forms of active transportation, as well as encourage public policy and legislation to that effect. Other considerations that the council should be mindful of when formulating policy on ATS CAMs include the RCW requires a law enforcement officer or other authorized personnel to review ATS CAM images prior to issuance of an infraction, which may require reallocation of existing resources, specifically staff time. Somebody would have to be able to review each one of the infractions. Looking at some of the data from other cities, you could expect that you'd have a fairly healthy number of infractions occurring. The volume of the citations would very likely create a new work burden on Battleground Muni Court, which could mean need to hire additional court clerk staff. And also, council should be mindful of the subjective perception of ATS CAMs by our residents. Notwithstanding what the law says about precluding the capture of images of drivers and occupants, it isn't outside the realm of possibility that some folks may hold a less than favorable opinion on the use of CAMs on the basis of privacy concerns. It's a lot, and so I'll leave it there and open it up for questions.
I got a question. Robert, can you go back one slide?
Yep.
So who determines what an authorized personnel is?
Yeah. Pull up. One second, Shane. Council member.
I'm going to guess it's not us.
No, it's not us.
I'm just wondering, like down at PD, can it be the records person? Can it be?
If they're trained, yes. More likely, most places it's probably going to be somebody with a badge.
Yeah.
But if an individual has been trained to review each one of those, yeah, he or she could probably do that.
Because I'm trying to figure out, like, leave it to the state to screw a good thing up. Because if all you can take is a picture of the license plate and the car, no, it said you couldn't take a picture of the driver. So if you can only take a picture of a license plate in a car, who needs to review what are we reviewing?
You're reviewing that an infraction actually occurred. There's probably going to be multiple pictures that are taken
From different angles.
from
Yeah,
different angles, yes. And so what they'll do is they take a photo to confirm, yes, that vehicle was running a red light. And then you track and you send the citation to whoever the registered owner is of that vehicle. The law presumes that the person who owns the vehicle is the one who actually that did the infraction.
Yeah.
Did the crime.
And so, I mean, and it says which may require additional staff time. Like, I think this is fairly easy. Is the car in the intersection? Is the car not in the intersection? Did it take did it take the picture? And then we just forward it on. It's different than like state of Oregon that takes a picture of your face. And now you're trying to line up, well, is that the registered owner? Is it not the registered owner? Is it?
So think of it this way. The city of Fife has an intersection up in their town.
Yeah.
And there were 10,000 violations that occurred in that one intersection in 1 year. They have multiple cameras around their
Yeah.
town. Okay. 10,000, you divide that by 52 weeks. I don't know what the number is, say a couple hundred. Okay. So somebody is going to have to review a couple hundred pictures.
Yeah.
To confirm that some violation occurred. And let's say it only takes you up 2 minutes to do that, right? Pretty easy.
Yeah.
That's still 400 minutes of time a week. And you do the math, that's almost 7 hours a week. So that's 20% of somebody's time is going to be spent to review each one of these to make sure that what the camera says occurred actually did occur.
And which I get that. It's just, it's not as hard as, to me, it's not as hard as reviewing someone's face and saying, who's the person driving this car? The other thing that I think is important that we haven't hit on is, while it doesn't go on your driving record, the information that I've received is it may not go on your driving record, but go try to renew your license.
That's correct.
So
That's 100% true.
if that's my kid driving through the stoplight and I just keep paying or I don't pay the tickets because I'm like, it wasn't me. When I go to renew my vehicle license, there's going to be a whole bunch of tickets on there that I have to square up before I can renew that license.
Yes, you will.
And so I think that's the difference, because I've had some people say, well, you can't enforce it. You know, there's nothing you can do. You don't have to pay them. Well, somebody's going to pay them, or you just don't have a license on your vehicle. So, and then you have a talk with your kid. I just don't, I don't think, I mean, I think it is going to take some time. And I think that probably to begin with, it'll take more time than once people get in the habit of it. I know in Portland, they have these for speed all over now in Portland. And my little GPS will tell me speed camera ahead, you know, and it will tell me, you know, slow down. There's a speed camera ahead, and it won't take long before people change their habits. So I think in the beginning it may require us a little more, but I don't know if it will overall, because it's fairly easy to look at. But I appreciate the presentation. I know a lot of cities are using this. A lot of cities on the east side of the state are using this. I've been through them. I've seen them in Moses Lake. They're using both red light cameras, and they're using speed cameras in school zones. You know, and we have a school zone that basically starts at Safeway and ends at Parkway. So I think that it's definitely worth looking at. So I appreciate the presentation again. And
Just to clarify the answer to your question, it does say that it can be a civilian employee of a law enforcement agency or an employee of a local public works performing under the supervision of a qualified traffic engineer.
looks like Mark's got a new job.
Get that man a badge.
So I think because of the way they do it, it does give us some flexibility there. And maybe this is, somewhere where you use volunteers, you use, people like that reserves, those type of things, if we ever have a reserve program. So, all right.
It needs to be a civilian employee.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Always interesting, always learn something new. My go-to on this, though, is I would like to put the brakes on it. Being said, because we just lowered the speed limits in the city and we don't even have any data on that, how that's going to work. I would love to go, Chief Flynn, 6 months, 8 months, to see how we are evening out with what we just did before we start jumping into the next phase and mode. So I appreciate it, but at this point, I would like to put the brakes on it and ask for staff to come back and share with us how the reduced speed limits are working for the city. Thank you.
No pun intended, right? Put the brakes on. Councilmember Ferrer.
So, yeah, I was actually thinking the same thing. I'm all for safer roads, but we are always talking about changing the behaviors of our drivers. And I know that we've got some plans on 503, just south. We're looking at a roundabout that should be coming in, starting to break in almost summer 2026, right? So that's gonna alleviate, I would think, some collision numbers. Also, I mean, I know it's gonna be a little bit further out, but we got north 503, Onsdorf, another one. Also, like Councilmember Davis just said, we did just reduce those speeds on Main Street and 20th, and I'm glad that we did that because there was some major collisions there. And so, but I would like to gather some data, have staff gather data over a period of time to see if those are some measurable changes that we can, look at, and before we just go rush out and then give us this expensive camera. And maybe it's not that expensive, but then the fact is we might need to be hiring FTE for that position because there might be so much data that they're going to have to go through. Like you said, 7 hours, that's a full-time employee right there. And our staff is already being maxed out at the police department. So I would say if council does not agree and they would like to have you come back next meeting or whenever with some more information, I would definitely be looking up where would the chosen locations be based on, I believe it was Chief Flynn, he had those things ready, but what would be the actual costs? I think you said that you've done those in the 2023, but bring that back out, have us take another look at it. How many infractions are we currently doing right now? I know you give us those numbers, but looking at it as a whole now with this ask, and then the hours that the officers are spending currently right now, just with those infractions, what is the revenue that we're getting on those infractions? And we talked, you guys said on here that we can use the funding for behavior changes. So would that be putting islands in a road or a roundabout, which I know that's going to be costly, but little islands to change the behaviors, or what would that look like using the funding from this ATS camera? So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
So I'm also in agreement on waiting. I mean, we just switched the speed limits and I'm not really sure why this came up today. I thought we were going to wait on it anyways. But my second point is when we did initially talk about this, I believe you said that the cost involved was neutral. right? We pay for the equipment and it paid for itself with infractions. So we weren't going to be out any money. Well, it sounded like when you compared it to that one city, they were making money off of it. So yeah, it was a positive thing. I mean, it definitely seems like a good idea if people aren't changing their behavior. Like I said, if we can look at the data since the change. I mean, I'm definitely interested. I was interested in it before. We just made the change, so I'd like to wait if we can to see the data. Thank you.
Thank you. I think most people have said the same thing I was thinking also. I do think that, the data has showed us that we have a couple of really high impact areas where we have accidents, the 503, 502, and then the 20th and Maine. And then in between that, we've got the high school area where we have a lot of speeders anyway. So if we can do anything to kind of get that under control with these speed limit adjustments, that's going to be positive. But again, I think the data will tell us in the next few months. And if the time to implement signage changes and get this rolling under the assumption this moves forward, that would probably be sometime in the first quarter before it's all said and done in terms of implementing all the speed limit changes. And then we're going to need a little bit of time to look at the data. So we're probably Q2 at least before we're looking at where are we and is there still reason to move forward.
Deputy Mayor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we're looking for data, especially on red light cameras, because we're mostly talking about red light cameras here. We're not talking about speed cameras. I mean, we can put them in school zones. We could have school zone cameras and we can get data there. But I think if we're looking for red light, you sit a police officer on the corner and you won't see people run a red light. But if you look at some of the main complaints we get is people running red lights. And so I think if we're looking for data, then maybe what we should do as a council, we've done this in the past, is authorize the city to free up some money for emphasis patrols and do emphasis at those intersections that we're looking at, 20th and 503 and those, and have undercovers that are standing on the corners or whatever it may be to radio ahead. We had this car run the red light, and that will tell us more probably than just out patrolling and saying, well, how many accidents did we have? Because just because you didn't have an accident didn't mean there wasn't 10 people that ran a red light. And I think all of us have seen it, on 502, 503, if you're there in the mornings or if you're there in the afternoons.
Yeah.
There's some pretty drastic red light runners that we'll say that don't want to wait for that stoplight again. And so I think that that's an opportunity that we could do is we've done that in the past, is just free up a little bit of money to do some emphasis patrols that are going to cost them over time, work with Target Zero potentially on some of that and get some more data for us.
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous idea because, between if the reality of implementation, signage changes, getting the data, we're months out, we could have a major crash in between that where somebody's actually seriously hurt. And so if we could do something like that, I wasn't aware of that option. And I think that's a good way to get us some data, maybe in the meantime, get a feel for what the impact might be and then decide from there.
Okay, to try to give staff direction, Mark, when do we think we're going to hear back on 503 speed limits? Is there a timetable there? Do we know? WASDOT's doing a traffic study, I think.
Nothing will change until the
Rasmussen.
coming in. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what are we looking at? You want 6 months of data, 9 months of data? How much data do you want before you see this again?
Well, I would like the in-person data.
That's what
From
you're
the
talking about.
officers, the red light runner stuff.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean,
We
the
can
other,
do that. We're gonna put that around Main and 20th with those new speed limit reductions to see if it changes. Is that what you're?
Well, I think it's I think you would have to do it anywhere that like if we're talking different intersections, 20th or 503 in Maine, I think you would have to do multiple emphasis patrols to see what that's going to look like. It'll give you kind of an idea, but I think that, they would be different times because it doesn't take long before you start doing emphasis patrols, before people start saying you're doing emphasis patrols, watch out. Right. So these are good times of the year to do them when it's darker.
Yeah.
Because they don't see you there and
Oh,
you
okay.
can radio who it is. We used to do seatbelt ones this time of year. And so I think that you'd have to do multiple ones depending on where we want it to look. If it's just 20th, then just do 2 on 20th.
I'm almost like, what about some Manny 2.0 cameras? Make people think there's a camera out there and it'll slow them down. Have you ever seen that when you're in Portland? You slow down because you think it's gonna take a photo.
Okay, I'm looking for direction. Where are we at?
I would like to do at least, a couple emphasis patrols. And so maybe come back with a budget on what the emphasis patrols would look like so that we can determine that and leave that up to, we approve the budget and let chief decide when he's going to do them.
Mm-hmm.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
At least come back with those numbers for the emphasis control for me.
Like it.
So what I'm hearing is direct staff to develop a plan for emphasis patrol, specifically on 502, 503 and Main and 20th.
Yeah.
And anywhere that the data shows in in professional opinion, it would be useful for council. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and is a 2-month testing
And yeah, cost and what that would look like.
based on 2 months of testing? You have to
I'd say let
chief. Okay.
the professionals professional.
Because these emphasis patrols aren't cheap
Yeah.
to do because you're paying overtime usually to do this. And so, I think we let them bring it back and say, this is what it's going to cost per patrol. And then we decide how many we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to see those numbers because I mean, the whole reason on why I'm not jumping on these cameras is because of the funding part, how much that's going to cost. I mean, if it was cheap, I'd be like, let's do it. Let's throw it out there, but it's not. So yes, definitely want to see those numbers before I vote on that.
It's a cost neutral.
Are we good then? Hold on traffic cameras, emphasis patrol data. Any other comments from council? Okay. Anything else?
I would say if we did decide on the next meeting that we're not comfortable with that cost, then 6 months data.
We'll wait till that next meeting and see what those costs are before we have it. We good? All right, that brings us to citizens communications portion of the meeting. We'll now open the meeting for citizens communication. Individuals limited to 3 minutes to provide comments. It's an opportunity to hear from the members of public in a limited public forum. If your comments pertain to an item listed on the agenda as a public hearing, please reserve your testimony for the designated public hearing period. Please direct your comments to the mayor. Council may not be able to respond to individual comments. If you have handouts, the clerk is right here, as well as the city manager's business cards. Please give them there. Thank you for your understanding and participating in the council meeting this evening. Do we have anybody online set up for comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, with that, I have one signed up for safety tax criminal justice purposes, but that is a public hearing. So we will do that at the public hearing, correct? Yeah. So that will be, I'll call you up on that. So we have Jessica Cole on speed limits.
Hello, City Council. My name's Jessica Cole. Of 18 pedestrian and cyclist crashes since January 2023, none have involved speeding. Most did not occur in residential areas, and those struck were mostly adults, not children or elders. No child or elder has died, and the only 2 fatalities were adults hit on higher speed arterials, not 25-mile-per-hour residential streets. In short, the reasons given to lower residential speed limits aren't supported by the city's own data or where crashes are actually happening. The city has already lowered speed limits on arterials where serious crashes occur. The 25-mile-per-hour section of Main Street functions very differently than neighborhood roads. And lowering the residential limits to 20 just to make them different doesn't make them safer. The city engineer has said that changing the speed limit sign without traffic calming designs won't change driver behavior. This new 20-mile-per-hour rule is unlikely to make a measurable difference, except for to add confusion and frustration for residents. Some have suggested stronger enforcement will make up the difference, but no new officers or patrol time are planned. This change won't be enforced any more than the old limit was. A better approach would be a clear way for residents to request lower limits where safety is a concern. Some areas already have 20-mile-per-hour zones, so there's a precedent. What's missing is a consistent process for others. Since the city can lower speeds without a study, but must do one to raise them, this change will be hard to undo even if it's ineffective. This isn't fiscally conservative or responsible. And just so you're aware, my understanding is you only have 1 year to raise the limits back under this current law or change. The council acted on assumption, not evidence. If the goal is safety and livability, rely on local data, not assumptions. And then I would also like to just note that some council comments have come across dismissive or disrespectful to citizens or staff at times. And I encourage you to rewatch the last meeting. Some tones and words were lost when people happened to speak over each other, but it was noticeable in person. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Anybody else in the audience didn't sign up? Okay, we'll close this citizen communication portion of the agenda. Brings us to consent agenda. Council, what's your pleasure?
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Motion by Councilmember Ferrer, second by Councilmember Davis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Before we start the public hearings, does anybody need 5 minutes? Or are we all good? We good? We good? Okay. All right, public hearings. First one we have up, Miss Megan. Is this yours? Yep.
I believe they're all mine.
You have all of them. It's the Megan show. Megan.
Yeah.
All right.
Good evening, council. So before you, you have the resolution 25-12, which is our fee schedule for 2026, the proposed that we've discussed over the last several months during our study sessions related to the fee schedule. And tonight is our public hearing to accept any public comment on the fee schedule, and then it will come back to council for adoption at the next regularly scheduled council meeting. So with that, staff suggests opening the public hearing.
Okay, we don't need the title read for the public hearing. Okay. All right, with that, I will now open the public hearing at 8:19 p.m. For public testimony, individuals are limited to 3 minutes to provide testimony regarding the proposed 2026 fee schedule. Please direct your comments to the mayor. Clerk, do we have anybody on Zoom wishing to provide testimony?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Seeing that, anybody in the audience wishing to testify to the fee schedule 2026? Seeing no further members of the public wish to speak, I'll close the public hearing at 8:20 p.m. Action on this item will be considered at the November 17th meeting, for those that are aware. So this was just a chance for the public hearing. Brings us to the next one, property tax levy.
Okay, so this is ordinance number 2025-19, which is our property tax levy for 2026. And it is a recommended tax increase of 1% over the 2025 levy, which is a 4-cent decrease in the levy rate from 2025. And with that, here is the property tax projections. You can see at the no increase and then at the 1% increase, and each base gives you what currently a house value. So if we look at the first one, 2025 base, a house valued at $450,000 this year pays $451 in 2026, if the 1% was adopted, they would pay $16.98 less versus a no increase, they would pay $21 less. So overall, if you look down the very far right column, the difference between taking the 1% versus not taking the 1% is about $5 regardless of your assessed value across the board. So that's the difference between the 1% versus not taking it. And then looking at assessed values, you guys have seen this multiple times over the years. As the assessed values go up, the property tax levy rate goes down. We are now slated to be less than $1. And then this is our example home. This is a former council member's home that we have the data back to 1992, which is great historical data. So back in the 92, 93 area, they paid $574 to the city. And in 2026, with the 1%, that same home with their current assessed value would pay less at $498. And so it just shows over the course of over 30 years, property tax levy rates for the city individually, not talking about total property tax, which includes multiple other jurisdictions, but the city only remains relatively flat. And then looking at what inflation would be. So obviously $500 in today's dollars back in 92, those are not equal based on inflation. So running this through the inflation factors in 93, that would have been the equivalent of about $1,300. So $1,300 this individual home would have paid in today's dollars versus the $500 today. So half, because $1 back in the day does not buy what $1 buys today, if that makes sense. So looking at their assessed value of that home, you can see the assessed value in 92 was just over 100,000, and then it's well over 500,000 today. And I will also note that assessed value, again, is not the same as market value. So the same home had an assessed value of 252,000 in 2017, but sold for 317,000. And then the home had a $450,000 assessed value in 2023, but sold for $546,000. So just to give you some perspectives on what assessed values are, and I will say that the median home value, assessed value, according to the assessor's office, is $455,000 for 2026. So the next steps would be to have the public hearing this evening to accept public comment on the property tax with the motion to adopt on November 17th. We have to have an ordinance adopted by November 28, 2025 in order to collect any property tax in 2026. So regardless of the 1% or 0%, we have to pass an ordinance. So with that, if there's any questions, or open the public hearing, and then we can have discussion if there's any questions.
Do that now. Thank you for the inflation graph. Very informative. We'll now open the public hearing at 8:24 p.m. For public testimony, individuals limited to 3 minutes provide testimony on ordinance 2025-19, 2026 property tax levy. Please direct your comments to the mayor. Do we have anybody on Zoom that wants to speak?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anybody in the public who wishes to, in the audience, that wishes to speak on ordinance 2025-19 property tax levy? Seeing no further members of the public wish to speak, I'll close the public hearing at 8:24 p.m. Could we have the title read, please?
Ordinance number 2025-19, an ordinance levying the annual property tax to provide revenue for the city of Battle Ground, Washington for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2026.
Thank you. And just like the previous item, action on this item will be considered at the November 17th regular city council meeting. And one more.
Yes. Give me 1 second. Okay, this is for ordinance 2025-17 related to the 0.1% public safety sales and use tax. City Council has an opportunity to conduct a public hearing accepting public comment on said tax. But before that, just wanted to have a few items of clarification for the council as a whole. So this is a councilmanic 0.1%, which would take effect April 1st of 2026. The city is to receive 100% of the tax. There is no cost sharing with other jurisdictions. It is estimated to bring in $500,250 for 9 months of activity in 2026. The tax would be dedicated to adding 2 police officers in 2026, along with associated costs, as well as being a match for potential CJTC funded positions. With the addition of officers, overtime should be reduced with the ability to have a different schedule. And then sales tax is a way for the estimated 92,000 people who come to the city to shop to share in the cost of the city's law enforcement. And then this last slide is actually, it was a request of one of the council members who asked what the other tax rates are for our comparable cities. And I wanted to share it with the full council as I was unaware of the other tax rates for the other city, and I found it interesting. Those highlighted in green are equal to our 8.6%. Those highlighted in red are less than, but all those not highlighted are all higher than the city of Battleground. None of these take into effect any new taxes that have been adopted, such as City of Ridgefield just adopted the same tax. This doesn't take that into account. So this is as of today. So with that, we suggest opening the public hearing for public comment.
I'll now open the public hearing at 8:27 PM. For public testimony, individuals are limited 3 minutes to provide testimony on ordinance 2025-17, 0.1% public safety sales and use tax. Please direct your comments to the mayor. Do we have anybody online?
No, Mr. Mayor.
And we do have somebody signed up for this one. Janice Ferguson?
Good evening. My name is Janice DeProvenzano Ferguson. And I would like to state the following. Builders and corporations are getting tax incentives and deferrals to come and build here and open businesses for 10 to 12 years. Since building of apartments, houses, franchises, and corporations bring an excess and increase of population and vehicles and shopping along with students, this also increases the crime in various types. Building plans get reviewed. Part of the review process is the significant impact that it may bring. It's amazing that how many come back with no significant impact. It impacts our traffic, our schools, our roads, and the quality of life here. These costs need to be placed upon the corporations, franchises, and contractors that come into our town and not on us. Increase permit fees, impact fees, etc. Stop the tax exemption that spanned for years. Our tax rate and taxes are high enough. Then throw in inflation, housing costs, gas, insurance premium increases. School levies have failed twice here because we, the taxpayers and citizens, are tired of misuse of our money, as well as always having to carry the burden. Our roads are a mess, traffic is a mess, drivers are insane, yet the building continues. And decreasing speed limits and the cost of new signs is not going to change that. Drivers are not obeying the existing limits now. I believe it's a total waste of money. We could have used that to hire yet another officer. Tens of thousands of dollars are spent for new speed limit signs, and it was unnecessary because nobody's adhering to the current speed limits as they are. I and many welcome change. However, we do not welcome overpopulation, increased crime, and overbuilding. I've been here for almost 39 years, and change is not always beneficial, nor is it always good. Once quaint town is no longer quaint, and it's being destroyed. There's over 30 apartments going in on Southwest 20th Avenue next to Magnolia Square Senior Housing. That is 2.5 people per unit and at least 2 cars per unit. Over 60 cars can be hitting Southwest 20th Avenue, and as you're well aware, is very dangerous as it is now. Affordable housing is a joke. They're only required to have so many limited units that they considered low-income housing, which are only $100 to $200 less compared to the rents. When is enough going to be enough? What does the growth management plan say? And that's my conclusion.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, seeing no further members of the public wish to speak, I now close the public hearing at 8:30 PM. And can we have the title read, please?
Ordinance number 2025-17, an ordinance of the City of Battle Ground, Washington, enacting an additional sales and use tax of 0.1% as authorized in Section 2.201, Chapter 350, Laws of Washington 2025 for criminal justice purposes, adding a new section to Title 3 Revenue and Finance Municipal Code, Chapter 3.25 Public Safety Sales and Use Tax, and providing for severability and establishing an effective date.
Councilmember DeRochers.
Yeah, I have two things. So with this, wasn't there something that if we didn't act on this now, the county could do it?
No, we are able to act on this without the county in any way, shape, or
So
form.
they couldn't come in and do it?
They can do their own.
Okay, so.
I think
This
that's
is
the
different than the
second.
one
That's
vote.
this is the new public safety sales tax. I think you're thinking of the second 1/10.
Okay. Okay, and then my other comment or question is, what's the timeline for you needing an answer on this for it to be implemented in time?
In order to collect April 1st, we'd have to have it adopted by the first meeting in January. I believe that's
Oh, okay.
75 days to April 1st.
Because I personally would like to wait until everyone on council is here to vote on this, because it's kind of a big deal to vote on, so I think we should have everyone here. Just my opinion, thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bear with me for a little bit on this one because in my 4 years, this is one of the hardest decisions that I've had to make. And it is because of our love of our law enforcement and uniform and all that they do, and they are exceptional. So I want that to be the first thing that I say, which is why it makes it very difficult. I look at this, and when you're a parent and your kids come with a big list for Christmas and they want this and you know you can't do it, you as a parent have to go back and say, okay, skim it down. What can I do? Where can I scrape so I can get something similar or the best? What I would like to do in this situation is I would like council to direct staff to go back in while we're in budget season and to go through this and nitpick and see if there is anything that we can scrimp to help without going out for a public safety tax to our constituents. If it means we're looking at a couple of our, hires, what does that look? I would like it to come back with a few options. I'm under this understanding that there are options before we do this. And I think it's important for us to do our due diligence on something that is this big. And I'll tell you another reason why is Clark County is coming with, in the new year, with an affordable housing sales tax, which is 0.1%. And we will get that burden too. Not that we have anything to say about it, except that we don't want that. That is another 0.1%. This has to be in our mindset before we make these other decisions. And to clarify from what I've learned, if I'm incorrect, the CJTC grant that we've been talking about, it is not, we do not need to have this tax in order to be qualified for the CJTC because we are already under a public safety tax situation from the county. So it's not a rush in order to get this grant. We are still up in the running for that. And if I may, just one other thing, the portion of that grant is so minimal that I think if you could tell me the number that we would get for the 36 months, right? This grant is for 36 months. And after that, the grant is gone. And so we need to think of that too, as it's going to come back to us at that point to help continue whatever we use that for. Lastly, so thank you for your patience. I agree with Councilmember DeRochers. I was thinking earlier, this is a huge deal. And I not only would like to postpone it for my prior statements, but to have a full council here So thank you so much for bearing with me.
Any other comments? Councilmember Furr?
Yeah, think I'll kind of go with what everybody else has said so far is, I love our police office. Wait, I'm sorry, my mic's not even on. Oh, okay, sorry. I'd like to also start out by saying I love our police officers, would love to be able to give them all the help that they need, including our other departments that are, needing, that are asking, they're making requests that we're seeing on the budget for FTEs, because we have a growing city. And, but the reality is, right, we don't have an open pocketbook. We can't afford all of this stuff. So I was going to ask, so thank you, Councilmember Chair Davis. I was also going to ask council respectfully if we could postpone this for another meeting, and have maybe staff come back with some information that would help maybe all of us or even me make a well-informed decision, because this isn't an easy one. It's like you want your police, but you also, we don't want to just jump at this new tool that the state has given us by using this tax. I don't feel comfortable just rushing in and grabbing it. We had a citizen here. I think there's going to be other citizens who are going to be like, oh, they're just money hungry. They're coming at us. They want more taxes. And I just think it would be nice to show our citizens that we are taking, like we're not just rushing, but we are trying to be fiscally responsible, taking a look at all these avenues. I mean, like, I guess some things that I wrote down, some thoughts maybe that staff could come back with is, right now, what is the amount that our police officers, the dollar amount of their overtime, and could that potentially be in itself a police officer hire right there? And then looking at this new FTE, the project manager, and seeing, I don't want to, maybe this is where staff needs to help me realize which one's more important. Do we need this project? I know that it's a request, we need it, but which one's more important? Sometimes that's what we have to do when we budget, even in our own households. Which one's more important? We might just have to wait until the next one, the next year for that one. And maybe one thing that could help me to come up with just to figure out if that is a good option is, what can you come back with a clear definition or a job description for this project manager? Because I think it was in October 6th, we weren't, as council, like, we didn't have a real clear understanding of what that job entails. And maybe that's just me, but yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a problem waiting till we have a full council. The one thing that I think is important to realize is we did a transportation benefit district, and we did was it $50 tabs? $25? $25. It was $25. $20. It was $20. We did $20 car tab that hit all of our citizens. And so if you lived in the city of Battle Ground, you paid $20. And we had a former council member that was very upset with out-of-state plates because of those people that paid the $20 and those people that chose not to pay the $20 by having out-of-state plates. And I'd first like to thank the police for 8 years later going out and actually enforcing this and letting people know that they need to get up to date on their plates. But we changed that from $20 car tab fee to a 0.1% sales tax. The reason we did that is because when we look at the city of Battle Ground, we represent 23,000 people, but 90,000+ people come through this city or shop in this city that don't pay anything for our police. outside of sales tax revenue that we have to take and use from that we get in the general fund and shove it over to them. And so when you see our police officers, there's a joke about where South Precinct is in this town and where we have to spend a lot of our time at certain establishments that may have higher theft, and our police officers are there. That's not just our people stealing from our businesses. In fact, most people don't steal where they live. Most people don't commit crimes where they live. They go commit crimes somewhere else. And so this gives us the opportunity to take those 92,000 people or 80,000 plus people that come into our city, and they participate in helping because they're part of the problem. It's not just our citizens that we need the police for. And so that's the beauty of this tax over just a property tax or those type of things that are only hitting our citizens. And this is the battle that is happening across the state right now is how do you fund these things? And this is the first time in 14 years that we have had the opportunity to do something like this and to supplement, because when we have other agencies, the challenge is I've been around long enough to know that this time of year during budget is tough for the city, because when we did our council retreat, it always comes out public safety is number one. When we put out our survey to the public, their number one priority was public safety, being safe. Then it became streets and parks and all those other things. They want to have a safe community. And so there's a lot of things that go into that. But when these staff are sitting in a meeting, I would say probably most of the time, I wouldn't say most of the time, there probably can be some contention, because police always get funded. Police get funded. We put a lot of money into public safety, but it costs a lot. We're right now for staffing where we were in like 2007 as an agency. And Walmart wasn't here in 2007. Maddox wasn't here in 2007. I'm not saying that they're having issues over there, but when you look at the growth that we've had in this city and some of these big companies that have come in with large employers, Wolf Industries, we just toured them tonight. They got 100 employees. They weren't here in 2007. So when you look at the growth that we've had and the amount of people that we've added and and not just us, when you look at what the county has done in building around us, like, that's why we have traffic issues. People think we have traffic issues because Battleground doesn't take care of the roads. No, we have traffic issues because the county's exploding around us. And so all those people are coming through here. I live on Onsdorf. I never used to have to wait to get to Onsdorf, and traffic backs all the way up to Main Street now. And it's not our traffic. It's traffic going north. And so, but we have to patrol that and we have to take care of that. And so I think this is the best way for us to have a funding source that can maybe ease some of that. So it gives us the opportunity to continue to support our police and grow, but it also gives us the opportunity to support other departments that we're already taking away from, because we're having to shove that money over into PD and to meet the staffing levels. The other thing that has changed big time, and I've seen it with PD and I see it from the fire side that I participate in, is FMLA. FMLA has completely changed. 12 weeks a year that you get to take in FMLA has completely changed our budgets and what we can do. And these are all things that are out of our hands. We don't have any control of that. We can't tell someone, no, you can't take it. And they can take that and get paid for 12 weeks. So those are things that we have to be creative and look for other ways. And I think this is a great way to do it. I don't think this is the answer to our problems. I think it can give us the opportunity to get where we need to be short term. But even when Megan did her presentation on the 1%, we're below $1. At some point in time, we're going to have to run some type of a lid lift, because it's going to continue to move down. As inflation, when we had 6 and 7% inflation, and we could only take 1%, we're moving the wrong direction. And at some point in time, we've got to go ask for that to come back so that we can continue to provide the services that our citizens need and deserve, and that we want in our community to be a thriving community. So I don't have a problem pushing it off. I think getting more information is good, but I think it also spreads that load out amongst everybody that's coming into our city right now, that's buying and shopping and doing stuff here. And it makes it a lot easier to sell than just putting the burden on our citizens. Thank you.
Great discussion. What I would recommend is to work with staff on the questions you need answered, so that they come back at the next meeting. That would be my ask, yeah. So that you get, because I think it is important that you get those questions answered. I also agree we should have a full council when we do this. I do want to say two things. The deputy mayor touched on it, and I asked Megan to give that graph of the inflation adjusted dollars of the property tax. You really need to look at that and understand what that graph means. 20 years ago, the real property taxes was $1,300 a year for the average house in here. Now it's $500. So everybody says, oh, city is raising our taxes, well, no, it's not this city. Our taxes going up? Yeah, maybe, but it's not us. So we're having to serve more people with less than half of the real dollars we did 20, 30 years ago. That's just cold hard fact. What the sales tax does is it gives you some inflation protection, because we can only raise that property tax by 1%. So every time there's a 5% inflation, we're taking a 4% haircut. And I know haircuts. So the sales tax gives you some inflation protection. Not all of it, but it gives you more than the property tax does. And as the deputy mayor pointed out, the people who are in the city using your services will share a larger burden. I would, when we have this come back, and I'll need a motion to delay this at some point. I would also like to see maybe throw the 1% in there, not taking the 1%. What does that look like in conjunction with the 0.1? And finally, Chief did give us a heck of a presentation on this. So I would really suggest we go back and look at that and what the overtime is doing to his staffing. Look at his plan on providing officers when we need them. And this is part of that plan. And we were all there. We gave him, yeah, let's go forward. And if we're going to pull this out now, we better have another, in my opinion, we better have another funding source or another way to get those officers on the street. We owe this city that, we owe the staff that. Overtime is not good when we're stressing our officers like that. So I'm fine delaying it. I'm fine if we want to find another way to do it, but we need to find a way to do it, in my opinion. With that, I'll entertain a motion to delay this ordinance to next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion was by Deputy Mayor Bowman, second was by Kuipers. Brings us to the business portion. Mr. Arp, are you awake? You still with us?
I want to, first of all, thank the Battleground City Council, particularly Mayor McCoy and also a Deputy City Manager. We appreciate both of you participating in our Clark County Transportation Alliance Summit and also the Clark County Government Affairs Roundtable, where we collect input and help use that information to develop policy that we take to the legislature every year. So it was very helpful. We had about 50 or 60 people in the room. And we dedicate the first part of that to bring consensus to a transportation policy statement that we update each year. The update in your packets had very few changes from last year, actually. We brought forward a lot of the projects. A number of the budgets needed to be revised or clarified. There were a few tiny tweaks that were made in the actual language, but by and large, I would say it's 95% the same document we had last year. We do this every year for the very simple reason that we have a variety of politics in our 4 legislative districts. And the Puget Sound, for many years, did a great job of basically allowing us to cancel ourselves out politically and then ignore Southwest Washington when it came time for funding. We have been getting nowhere near our 6.7% fair share of state funding for many years when it comes to transportation. And this is an initiative to help get the dollars coming back to the state, back to the county, and make the necessary improvements that we need to make. We also socialize a list of projects in this policy statement. City of Battle Ground has 2 mentioned. You mentioned both of them in other presentations this evening, so I won't get into the details, but we do represent this in an overall balanced statement as a shared plan for the region. And it opens up some wonderful conversations. I watched Paul Harris as a representative defend funding the I-5 bridge, which was not in his district. I watched Sharon Wiley stand up and defend 179th and improvements to the Camas Slough Bridge. I watched everybody in unison go to bat for 502, 503 improvements through the years. That's the kind of synergy and interaction we get from having a unified policy statement for our region. It's not perfect. It's a broad strategy. It's a broad consensus, but it works very effectively for us to carry a unified message to not only Olympia, but also to Salem and to Washington, D.C. We use this at all levels to be able to advance transportation priorities in our region. There's a lot of projects on that list, and we want to keep this, we call it a spring-loaded plan. We never know when the next package is going to come out. If you would have told me a short session in 2022, we would have had a big transportation package, I would have never believed you. But in fact, we did. And we were able to get projects funded as a result. So we always have to be at the ready to let people know where our next priorities are. And we work with everybody, the Regional Transportation Council and each municipality and organization to be able to do that. And then we go out and get about 60 or 70 endorsements on this policy statement every year, which is critical to show unanimity and support. It's not just municipalities. It's also school districts, it's labor, it's business organizations, it's organizations south of the river, not just in this area. We want to show a regional strategy and regional support. That's what drives this policy statement. Happy to answer any questions you have, but really appreciate the opportunity to give you an update here this evening.
Ron, just there was 2 takeaways from that meeting I was hoping you could touch base on.
Sure.
You made a comment about the projects. You said something along the lines of, and I'm not the speaker that you are, something along the lines of, we just have, if we agree on 90% of these projects, we're not going to agree on 100%, but it's about having a unified message. I was hoping you could touch on that real quick.
Yeah, for sure. We all want the projects in our area funded, and it's so easy to create competitive pressures within the region. But a thriving I-5 and 205 helps every component of the area. A thriving intersection at 502 and 503 does help people get to and from. It's important for us to lean into each other. How we do it, the exact amount, exactly the projects, we're not trying to micromanage. We're trying to basically hold together under a broad tent our overall approach.
And the second thing was Ms. Francis from WashDOT shared that they are going to fix the panels on I-5, which was great to hear. I know that's not new news to a lot of us, but I think what was really shocking was she shared how much that would cost.
Yes.
And how much of her 6-county budget that was. I don't know if you remember those numbers.
I do. I was hoping to forget them, but she said to replace a mile, took 15 million of her $31 million of maintenance and preservation to just do 1 mile. They have 4 more miles they must do, and they're trying to figure out where they get that funding. But maintenance and preservation is a critical issue. It's one of our platforms in the overall document. We have to continue to keep our community, our road system, our pedestrian system as well in good repair. And so it's going to continue to take more investments. Unfortunately, the inflation rates are getting construction unbelievably so. I think in the last 4 years, we've averaged about 9 or 10% inflation increases on construction projects, on major construction projects. One example, the Key Bridge that you saw a ship run into in Baltimore, the original estimate for that project was $2 billion. The estimate that they're working on right now is $5 billion, and they're not even sure that that's going to get it done. So the runaway costs of construction, steel costs, those sorts of things are very real. So the sooner we can get concrete in the ground, steel in the ground, we freeze that inflation at that point, and then we're actually moving forward on getting it paid for as quickly as possible.
And that's action number 2, council, for on that statement. So I just want that, I thought that was really instructive. 6-county area, essentially a $30 million budget. And she's, I mean, 15 million for I-5, and that's the WASDOT Regional Transportation Director.
And it's only the middle lane.
Yeah. I mean, it made me realize I need new shocks. So the local business did get some business out of that. So,
That's right.
Questions?
About the whole process and what this looks like, because when I see it, I think of the RTP, right? You have a board, you guys come together with all your wants from every city, and you have a representative from all of the different municipalities. And there's obviously a lot of other people at the table as well. And so this isn't even getting into like the weeds of it. This is just, here's the plan, this is our ask, and now we can go out and seek grant funding for this. Okay. My only concern is, it was right under action 3. I don't have my tablet, so I don't get to see this, and sorry for the people out in the audience that you don't know what I'm talking about right now. Action 3, underneath the square, it talks about the Chalachi Prairie. And I know we're talking about supporting your guys' policy, the CCTA's policy, but doesn't that kind of go against what we're talking about for our legislative 26 agenda ask, which is to go in that RCW and change the language on that, the railroad overlay usage. But you guys are seeking to so I'm only asking, I'm not trying to, cause any problems. I'm just asking.
Yeah, and I appreciate your question last year on the same subject. So, and I'll answer it the same way I did then, which is regardless of what happens with the Chalachi Prairie Railroad, whether it's commercial, whether it's recreational, or whether it gets reclaimed and, is torn apart and sold off or whatever, we're going to need state support to be able to help do any of that, whatever that happens to be. So we're not in any way trying to prescribe an answer for how to move forward. That's really not our job in this policy statement, but it is to say it's a railroad that's an asset. We need to figure out how we're going to manage that asset, and we're going to need some state help to be able to do it, because I don't believe any municipalities along that railroad have the wherewithal to be able to put any dollars to improving or in any way addressing that overall corridor.
One last thing, are there any, dang nabbit, sorry, forgot my mic. What is the conversations that are being had? Because I'm not at the table, so I'm not privy to all of these inside conversations. What are the conversations around the road usage?
You mean the
charge?
tax?
Yeah.
The road mile tax?
Yeah, I'm just curious on which direction that's going. If it's just, we don't know, I'm not going to answer for you.
The House Transportation Committee Chair, Jake Fye, was championing that conversation this year, and got to the point where it eventually went into the too hard pile. And I would assume that something along those lines is going to be come back to us at some point. We have heavy electric vehicles that don't pay a whole lot to use the road. We have gas taxes that are actually less effective in terms of we're more miles per gallon, less gas being burned. We still need road improvements. So how are we going to do that? So the tax necessarily doesn't work. So we have to figure out other revenue streams to support our infrastructure. And the road usage charge is one that's been under study for a long time. The Washington State Transportation Commission, I believe, is the group that has been doing a lot of study. We're silent on the issue. We know we have needs, but we're not here to try to prescribe the exact solution. We're here to say we recognize the needs, and we're here to support moving forward on keeping our roads and our infrastructure system in good repair.
Good. Yeah, I've not been part of any conversations on that. I think it's going to come from Olympia myself, but
I'd like to move to approve the endorsement of the 2026 Clark County Transportation Alliance policy statement in its entirety as presented.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor with a second. Any other further discussion? All in favor, please. I'm sorry, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just want to say this has come up every year, and there are a few highlighted things that I don't, that raise the hair on my neck. And one is the action number 1 and the action number 2 with the road usage. And in prior years, I voted against this because those are things that I am not in favor of. I think it's a little difficult for us to put our logo on something when we had a resolution against light rail. So I don't know how that works, but I get I hear it every year, and I understand that this is a broad action that we're just trying to get whatever we can get by saying we want to work together. That being said, I believe that I will just say here that I am against action 1 for the multimodal and against action number 2 for the road usage charge. I don't like those phrases, but this year I'm not going to be a stickler and say that not everything else is important as well. So I just wanted to let you know that in the years prior, why I voted this way and why this year, state my opposition, but I'm not going to vote against the whole thing because of that. So thank you.
I really appreciate the discussion on the vote. Just to clarify, is there any statement on light rail on this? It's just, my multimodal could be bus rapid, right? Yeah. Bus rapid transit.
Yes, it could be. And that's why I'm asking, instead of so broad, I would like specific of it's just a bike route or a bus.
Okay, I got you.
The broad of multimodal, anything can go in there. And that has always been my problem as far as the vagueness of it.
Gotcha.
It
Understood.
makes me nervous.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor to approve endorsement of the 26 Clark County Transportation Alliance policy statement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ron. Sorry for the late night. That brings us to the legislative agenda of which this was part of. So now I would entertain if there's discussion or a motion on the legislative agenda of which this is part of.
Move to approve the legislative agenda as presented.
Second.
Who is the second?
Me.
Second by DeRochers. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just, I'm not going to vote against it because I believe in the 2026 legislative agenda and all of what staff had presented to us this evening. I'm not against any of it. I would just, as a counselor, like to say that I also, I didn't like some of the things that the AWC's policies, although most of it was good. I do have some concerns, so I don't know where this will go. If you guys, mayor, you're on a board or something, I would just like as a council going forward, or our lobbyists, if they, anything moves towards this, I just feel like as a counselor, I should at least share my concerns, that I don't like how they were talking about a highway usage fee on top of retail delivery fee. And then they're also going to be, they also support revising the property tax cap. And so all those, they had a whole list of things that I support, but out of it, like I said, I'm going to I'm not going to say no, but I just wanted to share that those 4 things are or those 3 things are very concerning to me, and I don't support those things.
Yeah, and I think again, it's that 90% rule. It's the same concern you had last year, and I'll just bring up the same thing I did last year. House Bill 1110, which was the middle housing, which was part of AWC's legislative priorities. We lobbied against that. So just because, we as a city still chart our own course.
Okay.
And something like that, I mean, I would hope anybody who sits on a committee would come back and ask for council direction. Okay, with that, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Engineer Hersick.
All right, I have a series of franchise agreements to go over. The first being with Forged Fiber, essentially an AT&T company. When looking at franchise agreements, there's 3 things to meet the state law. Council has to hear it twice. Those 2 presentations have to be 5 days apart, and then the agreements have to be reviewed by the city attorney. All of these that you will hear have met all of those requirements. So I don't have anything to add to this particular one. So I'd recommend that we approve ordinance 2025-20.
Before we do that, could we get the title read, please?
Ordinance 2025-20, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Battleground, excuse me, Clark County, Washington, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Forged Fiber 37 LLC to construct, maintain, operate, replace, and repair a telecommunications system in, across, over, along, under, through, and below certain designated public rights of way of the City of Battleground, Washington, for a 5-year term.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2025-20, granting Forged Fiber 37 a franchise as presented.
Do I have a second? Thank you. My only concern, especially seeing all of these, is that I hope we take a very aggressive approach on the 5-year window on our roads getting torn up. And maybe the new project manager can be tasked with that if we approve that FTE that follow up on that, because I know having driven down South 20th for 25 years, where they cut into that is a large part of our problem. I know after 5 years, there's not a lot we can do, but that's just my only concern with all of these coming forward.
And I'll say generally speaking, I call them private utilities, but there's an easement behind the sidewalk for this. So that's generally, you'll have like your street crossings and things where it will go into our right of way, but generally speaking, this is outside of it.
Okay, especially if we're looking at spending some money on roads. Okay, any further discussion on this? There's a motion on the floor for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next one.
Our next franchise agreement is with Easy Fiber. I actually have Austin Christofferson here. He wasn't able to be at the first meeting, so he'd just like to say a couple words and answer any questions if you have them.
Okay. If you would state your name for the record, please.
Yes. Hi, my name is Austin Christofferson. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Easy Fiber. We are actually investing $400 million in the state of Washington to build our projects. A little bit about our company. We like to do things a little differently. We like to invest in the communities that we serve. We have a community impact team that has a quota of 5 to 7 events a week in the communities that we serve. We also have for life pricing. Transparency is key. $90 a month gets you the 2 gigs plan. That's for life. That includes taxes, fees, equipments, everything like that. And we also want to work with the city, especially when it comes to engineering. I hear your concern for tearing up the roads, Mayor. And we want to make sure that we do this right and in a respectful way, working with your team to make sure that we have restoration up and running in a certain time. We actually keep our contractors on very short timetables on restoration, and we'll make sure that that is followed through for you all there. And we actually are already breaking the ground in Southwest Washington. We actually announced, I think, 4 days ago that we are breaking ground in Vancouver, Washington. So we're around. We're already down here. We're super excited to start in Battleground and happy to take any questions. But one more thing, I want to give a huge shout out to Public Works Director. He's been an amazing partner on behalf of us. I will say, definitely one of the more easygoing processes that we've had. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. With that, could we get the title read, please?
Ordinance 2025-21, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Battleground, Clark County, Washington, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Easy Fiber Texas LLC to construct, maintain, operate, replace, and repair a telecommunications system in, across, over, along, under, through, and below certain designated public rights of way of the City of Battleground, Washington, for a 5-year term.
Mr. Mayor, move to adopt ordinance 2025-21 granting Easy Fiber Texas LLC a franchise as presented.
Second.
Second by DeRochers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, Metro FiberNet.
Thank you. All right, not much to add here. Jill from Metro FiberNet presented at the first meeting. Again, we've met all the requirements of the RCW, so I'd recommend approval.
Can we get the title read, please?
Ordinance 2025-22, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Battleground, Clark County, Washington, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Metro FiberNet LLC to construct, maintain, operate, replace, and repair a telecommunications system in, across, over, along, under, through, and below certain designated public rights of way of the City of Battleground, Washington, for a 5-year term.
Mr. Mayor, move to adopt ordinance 2025-22 granting Metro FiberNet LLC a franchise as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Second by DeRochers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Brings us to the next one, ordinance 2025-23.
So our last one is with Ripple Fiber. Kevin gave a presentation at our last meeting. And again, we've met all the requirements for our CWs, so I'd recommend approval.
Title read, please.
Ordinance 2025-23, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Battleground, Clark County, Washington, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Hyperfiber of Washington LLC, DBA Ripple Fiber, to construct, maintain, operate, replace, and repair a telecommunications system in, across, over, along, under, through, and below certain designated public rights of way of the City of Battleground, Washington, for a 10-year term.
Mr. Mayor, move to adopt ordinance 2025-23 granting Hyperfiber Washington LLC doing business as Ripple Fiber a franchise as presented.
Second.
Discussion.
Are there discussions? Yeah, go ahead.
I'd just like to ask, and it's probably not a big deal, but I'm just asking that one, this one for Whipple is for 10 years and the rest were all 5. Did I hear that correctly?
So the first 3 are for 10 years, but they're a 5-year with an automatic 5-year renewal. Ripple negotiated to just straight up 10 years, even though they're all 10 years, which is consistent with our code. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good question. Any further discussion? Seeing those, motion on the floor by Bowman, second by DeRochers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. I just want to say with all of this coming in, I'm looking forward to some starkly lower prices for internet in the city.
Yeah.
Okay, comprehensive plan update time. Do we need, anybody need a break? Are we still good?
So far, so good.
Okay, we march on.
Good evening. This topic will wake you up. So it has, it has been some months since we've presented to you related to the comprehensive plan update. We've had some work happening, including our draft comprehensive plan, which is now available online, that we also shared with Planning Commission last month. So we're going to do a brief summary and status presentation for you. And then I'm joined by Planning Supervisor Sam Crummett, as well as our consultant, which I'll introduce in just a moment, to answer any questions you might have, and then look for some direction. We are planning to come speak with you again at the November 17th meeting. So if there's any areas of focus or that you'd like us to highlight during that meeting, as well as we will share at the close about upcoming community open house that people can attend to learn more about the comprehensive plan. So with that, this evening, we have Ben Hahn with Burke Consulting. They're our partners working on the comprehensive plan update for us. Good evening, Ben. So he will be presenting, and thanks for hanging in there with us.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. It's great to be here again. I'm just going to quickly share my screen with the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. Is it sharing my screen? Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, we can see it. Thanks, Ben.
Great. So it's great to be back again. As Kristen mentioned, I was last here in May of this year to give an overview of the Battlegrounds Comprehensive Plan. And so my hope for today is to give an overview of, again, kind of refresh folks on what the comprehensive plan is, what have been sort of our major updates to the plan, and give an overview when to anticipate a high-level overview of the city's anticipate growth for the next 20 years through 2045. And yeah, we'd love to hear feedback on key questions to make sure that we're addressing as this plan moves towards adoption. Just to kind of give a brief 101 overview for folks who may not be familiar, the city's comprehensive plan is a really critical document in really ensuring that we're trying to think about household and employment growth over the next 20 years. As a critical part of this work, there's been a lot of community engagement in thinking about how a city's vision for growth reflects the values of within the city of Battleground and their own goals and dreams for living for the city to thrive. And so the document should encompass a series of policies that will help guide future development within that community-based vision. And so how this relates to the state planning process is that we've been working with Clark County closely and ensuring that the city's comprehensive plan aligns with the county's, as well as thinking about the overarching Growth Management Act and new legislation from Olympia over the last couple of years. All this, as I mentioned before, is a requirement under the Growth Management Act. The Office of Financial Management provides projections, population projections for both within the county and for a city. And so working with Clark County, we knowing that there's a specific number of jobs and housing anticipated within the county, what share of that growth should be carried forth within the city of Battleground. With regards to what topics are covered in the comprehensive plan, there's a wide range of elements that are required for the city staff to consider, including land use, housing, capital facilities, which include schools, as well as thinking about police and fire services, utilities, transportation, parks, recreation, open space, the natural environment, particularly thinking about how the City Alliance has a shoreline management plan, as well as thinking about protecting critical areas, as well as fish and wildlife habitat, economic development, which I know is a big driver of this update to current plan, as well as a new requirement under House Bill 1181 for cities to adopt the climate element to think about ways for us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, as well as we anticipate more extreme weather events such as wildfire, flooding, or smoke, that we have a strong plan in place to protect those who work and live within the city. On top of what's required within the comprehensive plan update, there's some additional elements that the city of Battleground has elected to adopt as well in terms of thinking about livability, thinking about like the aesthetics or sort of design of the architectural structures within the city, as well as trying to think bigger picture urban design strategies as well as adopting a sub-area plan for Old Downtown this past year. I personally had the joy of working with Sam and Kristen since 2023. But in terms of thinking about what all the planning work that has gone into the comprehensive plan, this work actually began 6 years ago with the adoption of a community vision plan in 2019. And since then, there's been a subsequent series of plans that have been developed that's all being integrated into this comprehensive plan update. And so in 2021, there was a land use master plan, as well as a housing action plan. The transportation system plan has been updated in 2021 with additional updates this year as well too. This also integrates the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, or PROS plan, from 2022. And over the course of this last year, just been noting and tracking that there was the adoption of the Old Downtown plan this year, as well as knowing that there's updates to the sewer and stormwater comprehensive plans as well too. Lastly, we did a tree canopy assessment for the city of Battleground as well, doing an assessment of existing trees within the city of Battleground, both on private and public property. And so all this work has been culminated, and we've done our best to ensure that policy recommendations from these plans are integrated into the comprehensive plan update. One of the key sort of topics of which we had addressed through this comprehensive plan update was looking at a preferred alternative for growth for the city of Battleground. And with the adoption of the land use master plan in 2021, part of this work included an adjustment to the urban growth boundary to incorporate Dollars Corner to the west side of the city into the city. And the primary drive for this is desire to see increased employment opportunities within the city as well. And a part of this work as well too, there was a minor adjustment of removing a portion of the UGA in the southwest corner, as well as integration of some more employment opportunities in the northern corner of the city as well. And so this is the preferred growth alternative that we worked with in terms of thinking about meeting the city's household housing and employment goals for 2045. As I'm mentioning about 2045, I just want to note too that this is a 20-year vision, and so there's still a lot of work to be done. But in terms of thinking about what this alternative provides, is that it provides a pathway and direction for city staff into thinking about new household employment opportunities for the next 20 years. We looked at two different alternatives in looking at growth within the city. The first is what's called a no action alternative, which means that if we look at the city as it is today, will we be able to accommodate the households and jobs that has been allocated to us from the county? And then we also looked at a second alternative, which is based off of assumptions from what was adopted by council through the land use master plan, and it does include the UGA adjustment to Dollars Corner. The table in the bottom left is a high-level summary of anticipated, is our allocation of household and employment growth through 2045. And so working with numbers from Office of Financial Management, as well as Clark County, our allocation through 2045 is 6,979 households and 8,859 jobs. If we were to look at the existing city boundaries and existing policies, they'll note that we'll fall short of that goal. Under our no action alternative, we would fall short about 1,600 households, as well as not being able to demonstrate capacity for employment as well. However, because of the land use master plan and through the past planning efforts to date, as well as the land capacity analysis, we were able to demonstrate that through this past planning work that's been done, that through this process, we would actually hit about 8,000 households within the city of Battleground. And on top of that, we did assume that 5% of households that are zoned for residential use would consider adding an ADU as part of their housing development. And so with that, we'll hit a surplus of about 1,000 units within the city of Battleground. With regards to employment, the reason why you see the large shift from 5,400 jobs to about 8,600 jobs with the preferred alternative is because of the inclusion of Dollars Corner into the city of Battleground. And so that was the large drive with that. The Clark County has also provided job allocations for construction and work from home jobs. And so collectively that adds up to about an additional 1,100 jobs. And so that's how we're hitting our target of 9,777 jobs for employment through 2045, with a surplus of 918 jobs. Been kind of speaking for a little bit, but yeah, I think I'll just kind of pause here, kind of check to see if there's any clarifying questions I may answer about the comprehensive plan or about what I talked about with regards to housing and employment allocation through 2045.
Were there any questions on those figures? Would you like us to continue? I know everybody's ready to head home, so.
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm sorry if I missed this. Why would we want a surplus of 1,000?
In the household
Yes,
specifically?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so this is so all this work in terms of calculating housing has been driven largely by House Bill 1220, which requires cities to demonstrate capacity for housing at different income levels within the city. And so I can talk for a while about this, but essentially the challenge that we've had with the cities, for the city of Battleground, is the need to demonstrate for housing from the 0 to 80% AMI level, meaning we have to provide housing from moderate income level housing all the way down to emergency shelters and beds. And so a lot of the pivot in housing, the surplus, comes from looking at multifamily housing with the city of Battleground, but also within the current zoning regulations that city has currently. The city actually has quite an abundance of supply capacity to meet housing from an 80% AMI all the way to I believe the number was up to about 120% AMI as well too. 120%, 88 to 120%. So the surplus is coming from a mix of recognizing that the city of Battleground is able to provide a pretty large surplus of housing from the 80 to 100% AMI level, as well as with multifamily housing as well.
I just think my concern would be the average person, if they were looking on our website and going through some of these data points, to see when the big complaint is that we're growing too fast, we're growing too quickly, we're doing too much. And then to say that in the end, we could have 1,000 more, unless I'm misunderstanding how this reads. I understand what you're saying about it's just kind of how the numbers fell based on the different categories, but the average person isn't going to understand that, I don't think. So it's just a little concerning to me in terms of being able to articulate to the citizens what that really means and what is our intent with that surplus.
Yeah, and I would argue too that, I think at its best, this is really a long-range planning exercise about demonstrating capacity for housing.
Yeah.
As you all know, like as city staff, we're not developers for housing. We don't dictate what actually gets built as well too. And so I would always argue that this is a presentation on demonstrated capacity. But in terms of what gets built through 2045 is it's kind of, we don't have control over the market as in that sense.
I'm sorry, we don't have a what?
That we're not developers, and so we're not dictating like like it depends. There's other factors such as the market of developers choosing to build in the city of Battleground as well too.
And Councilmember Kuipers, perhaps this is an area when we come back on the 17th, we can do a little bit more analysis at the income levels and kind of look at how those numbers break down.
That'd be great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, Ben.
Awesome. In terms of project timeline, we are approaching the end of the comprehensive planning process. Currently giving a presentation on where the draft comprehensive plan is currently. Sam, you're much more out. I don't know if I think you're on this call as well too, but one of the things that we're keeping in mind is that we're following the county's comprehensive planning process as well too, ensuring that our plan is in alignment with their schedule as well. And that's actually my last slide. So I could pause here for any additional questions, or if Kristen, if you or Sam have anything else you wanted to add. Presentation.
If there's no questions from council, this is Sam Crummett, Planning Supervisor. If you're trying to figure out where I'm at, I'm over along right field next to Alicia. Our next meeting is November 17th. If there's any areas you'd like for us to focus on the comprehensive plan, let us know. That could be, for example, the agricultural land study that the county should be wrapping up anytime within the next few days, and what implications that may have for Battleground. If you would like to hear more about our jobs planning, housing, reach out to the city manager or any one of us, and we can focus on those items. There's an open house scheduled at the Battleground Event Center on November 19th. We'll make that open to the public, and that's it'll be 2 days after the next city council meeting.
Wednesday the 19th.
Wednesday the 19th. And then I would ask that the council establishes a public hearing date on this item for December 1st. And at that meeting, we can get a little bit more into the Planning Commission recommendation. This has gone through our Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has recommended approval. They also have included the addition of 3 parcels along the edge of our urban growth boundary that we can give more details on. And then I think the final thing I'd like to say is we have our comprehensive plan ready to be adopted by the end of this year, including draft code updates required by the Growth Management Act. I think it's important to let all of you know that we've done our work to be in compliance with the GMA by the end of the year. This will need to be adopted sometime in 2026 because our urban growth boundary expansion does include Clark County, and these decisions need to be made in tandem. So I just wanted to state that and see if there's any questions.
I think yes on the ag study, please. Yeah.
I just want to tell staff, thanks for having this done. I wish we weren't behind waiting for the county on this stuff, but I think our staff has done a great job of meeting the deadlines that needed to be met and putting the stuff forward. And I know it's a lot of work, and you know, most of us don't have any clue what it involves or why we do this. So, but I appreciate the work that you guys have done and being ahead of the game. And I wish the county was a little bit more in tune and had their work done too, that it wasn't being delayed at all. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say that, echo that. For those who haven't been on council long enough to have gone through a GMA, you know, I don't know all the process, and I'm wondering if a study session on such a thing would have been nice to have. Because for me, we talk a lot about the housing need, and what those requirements are going to look like and what's being passed down onto us as city councilors. But there's more to this comp plan than just housing. I mean, there's 9 different topics here. And I'm just like, and we keep getting, this is just my personal thing. We keep getting well, this is what the comp plan, and I was like, I want to get to the meat. What exactly does that mean? What does this look like in the city of Battleground? What does this look like for our economic growth and for our ag land and all these other topics? So that's what I'm like, would get excited to see more of. But thank you.
Well, excited and GMA in the same sentence is a brave statement. With that, I would entertain a motion to set up public hearing for the December 1, 2025 council meeting to hear public testimony regarding the comprehensive plan update.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Ferrer, second by Kuipers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Mr. Hersick, did you corral your mic?
Yes. For our next topic, we're going to talk about the comprehensive stormwater master plan update. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Emily Stevens with Windsor Engineers to go over it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for making it to this evening. I'm just going to share my screen. Give me a second. All right, is everybody able to see my screen?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Well, this last presentation on the comp plan set up our presentation very well. So this should be quick and smooth. We'll be talking about the comprehensive stormwater master plan that we have been working with Mark to develop. So very much in line with what we just talked about with the full comprehensive plan. The comprehensive stormwater master plan is a subset of the comprehensive plan. Most cities do a specific plan dedicated to stormwater management and the stormwater management program as part of the comprehensive plan and the GMA. But the other items within a stormwater master plan, it really helps the city focus on managing their stormwater infrastructure and programs dedicated to surface water and stormwater runoff. The plan also supports what is called the PDES Phase 2 permit compliance, which is a stormwater permit that the city holds with the state. It helps incorporate and implement stormwater management plan items, which are a separate plan that outlines specific needs and projects within the cities to improve water quality. And it provides that capital improvement plan for 20 years right alongside with the comprehensive plan. So it can all be incorporated together. And then it establishes those long-term stormwater goals for the city as a whole. I think a lot of the questions on why is a comprehensive plan necessary were just answered. Very similar and in line with the GMA. That is what drives a comprehensive plan. And then with a comprehensive plan under that environmental, there's always a stormwater management section or chapter. And the city of Battleground has, for a while now, had a specific stormwater master plan that satisfies that chapter requirement and just really expands on the program itself. Having a specific stormwater master plan really improves eligibility for funding applications on stormwater infrastructure projects. And then they are updated every 10 years for a 20-year horizon. So we are doing that in line with the comprehensive plan. And the last one was updated in 2015. So we have started the update. Well, we're actually wrapping it up now. So on the right side here, just an image showing the various different stormwater plans that the city of Battle Ground has. A lot of times people can look at these and wonder why there are so many and how they're all related. And so we just, part of the plan is outlining how the comprehensive plan really guides the stormwater master plan and how the various plans within the engineering department help guide the comprehensive stormwater master plan. Again, similar to the last presentation, we are at the council review portion of the project, looking for review and comment period from the council. After that would be city adoption. What's new from the existing stormwater plan? This version is much more robust and comprehensive than the 2015 version was. We did build on the 2015 version and we added some long-term goals and very clear actions related to those long-term goals. We included a fish passage and protection section, which is new. And then we also have a staffing needs and recommendations specific to the city's stormwater program. A large component of the stormwater master plan is the capital improvement program. You can see a list. I know there's a lot in this table, but this is a list of those capital projects for stormwater that the city has in the 20-year CIP. This total cost, that's over the 20 years total, so it's not annual, that's a 20-year cost. And so the city does have a lot of exciting projects coming down the line for stormwater improvements for the infrastructure. And with that, I can open it up for any questions or comments.
Any questions other than council would like a copy of that? Councilmember Ferrer would.
Can I get a copy? The plan. Yeah, because she's given an overview, which thank you, but this is not where I want to dig into it tonight. But there was some interesting things. Yours actually woke me up, this CSMP, and gives me a lot of questions. I'm actually excited. So yeah, if I could get a copy of that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, the full plan was in the packet, so.
Already.
If you had more questions, go ahead. I was going to say, what's the reasoning for the ditch elimination? What's the stormwater benefit?
So it's more of a traffic safety benefit for that particular one.
Okay. All right. With that, council, I would entertain a motion to set a public hearing for the December 1, 2025 council meeting to hear public testimony regarding the comprehensive stormwater master plan update.
So moved. Can I get a 2025?
Second.
Second by Kuipers. Motion by Ferrer. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Administrative reports?
I just want to touch on this a little bit because I think it's a little too early to come back with a report, but we did spin up community court, as you know, and our first one was held at the end of July. And really within 3 months, we've already had a graduation that took place last week. Someone who's involved in that successfully completed all the conditions in his plan. And then we plan to have another one November 20th that was really a bigger deal for us. I just want to touch on that and let you know that we're really pleased with how it's going at community court, and the successes are coming faster than we thought that they would. But I think after the first of the year, we'll have more of a comprehensive report because I really thought we needed to give it at least 6 months. I just wanted to touch on the fact that I'm amazed at the successes we're having with individuals that we're getting, that are in the system, and then we are getting them out and on a path to wellness. Other than that, go ahead.
Weird question on that one, because I like that you're saying that you're seeing success already, and you're going to bring back something more detailed. I would just say, if you're going to bring back something, could you elaborate more on what that success looks like, since we don't get it? Okay, awesome.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And the other thing I'd mention is that tomorrow is election day, and please don't forget to vote. That concludes my report.
Brings us to council communication. I just have one thing real quick. I've had discussions with staff about this, but I think it's good to get it out there. The sidewalk that was torn up on 20th, I understand there was some miscommunication with the contractor. I'm curious from staff if we have, because it's gravel right now on all four sides. So I have gotten citizens complaints on that. So I was hopeful maybe we could get something out about that, or is there a plan for those it's the ADA ramps, the yellow bumpy on the corners of 20th and 6th. I think somebody jumped the gun on something, is my understanding. So maybe we could get something out. I know there was a great project update that came out recently. Thank you for that. You can come up to the podium.
All right, so in speaking with the project manager last week before we sent out that project announcement, he did confirm he is working with the contractor to make sure that the ADA ramp replacement is a priority. I do not have a timeline on that, but he is working closely with the contractor on that, and we will share announcements, not just on that piece, but every phase of it, including traffic updates on our Facebook page and Instagram page. So follow for that.
Okay, thank you. The mayor, you have something? Anybody else?
Yeah, I just had the email that we got tonight about the Portland Loos in the park, and seeing that I wanted to find out, number one, how long it would take for us to get the correct Portland Loos to meet the ADA codes.
The last I'd heard, it would be sometime next year, but we can follow up and get a revised timing from them.
Okay, because my concern is when we, and maybe I'm completely wrong, council, you can correct me if I am, the whole reason we were putting Portland Loos in was because of the issues we were having with the bathrooms that are there right now, and because people could lock them, they could go in, they could vandalize them, they were doing all kinds of stuff in them, around them, and that's why we needed to go to these and to look at it and see that they aren't going to meet the standard, and then we're just going to leave one, we're going to remodel or fix one of the bathrooms to be able to use. Doesn't seem like that was the intent of, or at least what I thought the intent was of going to the Portland Loos. And I used to make fun of the former city council member who we used his house tonight about the $500,000 bathroom that the city council approved in 2008, 9-ish, that was built and was very seldom open because of vandalism. And this has already been in the paper this last week on what we're paying for these things. I'd hate to see that we're not getting what we wanted and that it's not being used as it was intended. So I'd love to see, where council is with that, or if what it would take to get the proper ones and do it right.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question? Is the AD requirement that half of them have to be ADA? If I read that in the email correctly? So here, let me phrase my question. What if we hold off on one? Because the issue right now is there's not a nice, so you could use the old one, and then would that meet the requirement?
My understanding is yes. I think there's a 50% requirement.
So if we went ahead and kept the order for one and waited for the order on the second, then we would be, Mike.
The email said that we'd have to upgrade the existing bathroom first.
I don't think we would with this idea.
Well, no, because we wouldn't be at 50%.
Yes, we would.
Yeah,
Mm.
there might be a timing issue. I think it would depend on the timing of that second one. Because you may have to do. And see, the hard part is too, it's not an ADA, federal ADA issue, it's an IBC issue. So the bathrooms do meet federal ADA law. That they don't meet the building code requirement. So that's the struggle.
Yeah, the email I sent you tonight is, they do meet the federal law of the American Disability Act. But this state adopted building codes last year, March of 2024, that now require that turning radius to go from 60 inches to 66.
What's the risk of noncompliance? And do we need to ask the lawyer that in an executive session? That would be my question.
Yes.
Well, I think my only issue with that is, and we can ask the attorney this, but would we require anybody else to meet that code? And if we would, then that's probably what they're going to come back and say, is that we can't say, no, we're not going to meet it. But, you know, if the mayor wants to build 2 bathrooms, he has to meet that.
So per our building official, we can't pick and choose. So we have to hold ourselves and our permit reviews to the IBC standard that we mentioned, not the federal. So to answer your question, yes, we require that 67-inch of projects we review, and we should require that of our projects as well.
And the current bathrooms wouldn't matter because they're not new. So
Well,
they fall under the old code.
My understanding is 50% of the bathrooms have to meet that standard. So if we have, and again, I'm sorry, I have parts of the story, so correct me if I'm wrong. If we have 2 existing brick and mortar that aren't necessarily up to code, and we're bringing in the loos, which it sounds like their designs aren't to the updated code, we're required to have 50% of our bathrooms meeting that. So the 2 brick and mortar existing would need to be upgraded. I believe we have the space. We just need to add some.
Yeah, there was just a couple things to.
If you just took away the brick and mortar, you're 2 for 2.
So in the scenario you proposed where perhaps we bring in 1 current design.
And then close 1 brick and mortar. We still have 2 bathrooms. When you get the second loo, you bring it in, it meets IBC codes, it gives you 50%, you close the second brick and mortar.
So as long as we're talking about the timing of keeping half of what's available up to code, I think we could look at.
That's what I'm asking.
Something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Because I would hate to do it and then they don't meet the standard. And we're just leaving the bathrooms open that we were told needed to be closed for, you know, vandalism purposes and everything else. And so it just doesn't, that's a lot of money to spend and not accomplish what we were trying to accomplish. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Next regular city council meeting will be held Monday, November 17th at 7 p.m. with a study session at 5:30 p.m. The study session will be held at the Foundry Michelangelo, located at 808 Southeast Commerce Avenue, number 120 in Battleground. If you've never seen it, it's quite a treat. It is 9:53. This meeting's adjourned.